There's a myth going round town that when you get older you just sit down and start rocking. Just rocking. In a way that's true, if you know what I mean. Just take a look at the senior scene. Well, it's rocking. Yeah, it's rocking. We're pulling our weight.
I'm Sherry Roseman, and I have worked with a fabulous team to put this event on. Janice Tyler, Mary Frazier, Joni Moody, J.B. Culpepper here. And we had no idea that this many people would be interested in this event. And I'm reminded that when I was in graduate school and things were not going well, I said, I think I'm going to start an organizing business. And that was 10 years ago. And if I had seen this crowd here tonight, I'd think, maybe I should have done that. So we're glad you're here. We're going to bring up some panelists for some really practical tips for downsizing and decluttering. I'm going to ask the panelists to stand up when they're speaking. So here's what we'll do tonight. We'll have each panelist speak for about 10 minutes, except for Jane, and Jane's going to stay up with the group because we're going to have a round of questions at the end, actually a fairly long period of time to ask your specific questions. But the first panelist that I'm going to bring up is Colin Austin. So Colin is an estate attorney, and he is also a member of our Aging Advisory Board. So he's really given this community quite a bit and already, and we're just really glad to have you tonight, Colin. Colin's going to help us talk about those documents. When do you get rid of them? Which ones do you get rid of? And how do you think about your papers?
Well, my name is Colin Austin, and it's great to be with you. After hearing Jane talk, I thought, well, maybe the question is, how do you even find your legal documents? But I'm an estate planning attorney. I help people create strong wills and trusts and powers of attorney. I do a lot of work with people that may need to go into long-term care and handle their resources very carefully. And what I want to talk to you about this evening is really, what are kind of your essential legal documents? How should you store them? How long do you need to keep them? There's not always a precise answer to this. But let me start out with what I think is probably the most important document that you'll sign during your lifetime, and that's your will. Okay, your will is the document where you get to control who is going to manage your estate after you pass, and who are going to be your beneficiaries. So the will's the place where you really have your estate plan. Now, if you don't have a will, you'll still have a plan, but it's the North Carolina plan. That may not be the one you want. If you die without a will, and most people do, about 2/3 of people die without a will or their will isn't valid. Then they get the North Carolina plan, which spells out how things are to be divided, and that may not be the way you want things to happen. So one thing to think about, if you have a will, during your lifetime, you may make a new will. So what do you do with that old will? What do you do with the will that you made, 30 years ago, 20 years ago? What you want to do is to make sure you get rid of that will. You don't want that will suddenly popping up. And if that's not the plan that you want anymore, that's something that you need to take care of and make sure that nobody's going to use that again. You want to have your new will not be challenged. So where do you put your will? How do you keep it safe? It used to be that a lot of people kept their will at the courthouse. So for example, up in Hillsborough, there's an estates office. And if you want, to this day, you can still take your will up there and they'll store it for you in the estates office. It's not really fancy. It's basically kind of a closet, and they have a place where they'll keep it safe in a cabinet or But these days, that's not as common. In fact, few people do that these days. Why? Because people forget about it. They move, then nobody knows where the will is. That's out of sight, out of mind. Another thing some people do that I usually discourage is they keep their will in a safe deposit box. Now again, that it can be out of sight, out of mind. It presents a problem if somebody passes and they have a safe deposit box. There's lots of regulation around how you open someone who's deceased, how you open their safe deposit box. You have to get a deputy sheriff and some other things to kind of unlock it in front of different people. But I think the biggest problem, again, is that if you don't tell anybody, nobody's going to know. I usually recommend that you keep your will in a safe place in your home. Maybe a firebox, maybe a real safe cabinet. You've probably seen, you may have this, some attorneys still do this where you'll get your will in a little packet, and maybe you'll have your other forms sort of in a vanilla, folder or something. What I always do, what I recommend is put everything in one binder, one 3-ring binder, and just have it all together. That would be a good binder that's going to last, and put it somewhere where you know it's going to be safe. Tell other people where it is, especially the people who you've named as executor, or maybe your close family. Make sure that they have access to it. A will usually isn't a really big document. It's not going to take up a lot of space. And in fact, your whole estate planning set should be able to fit in one binder. But make it good. Another important estate planning document to keep track of is your financial power of attorney. Why is that important? Because that could help you during your lifetime. If you ever become incapacitated and you need somebody to manage your finances for you, the financial power of attorney, or sometimes it's called a durable power of attorney, is the document you want to have prepared and in place. So you get to name who your agent is going to be and what their powers are going to be. It is a very powerful document because you are giving someone the ability to act on your behalf. In finances, real estate, business, anything that has to do with the money and the resources you have. Again, I like to put that in the same binder. Let the agent know, send them an electronic copy as well. That financial power of attorney, as you get older, is something you're probably going to want to have registered at the Register of Deeds. You take it down there, and for $26, they will make a copy of it for you and mail it back to you in about a week, so that they will always have a copy. And if your agent needs to go to a bank, a lot of times the bank will say, you need to see the registered copy of your power of attorney. Okay? Healthcare power of attorney, that's really important. In fact, we're going to have a session, I think, tomorrow about healthcare advanced directives. But the healthcare agent, again, is someone that you name to be that point person for you if you're unable to make a decision yourself, if you're unconscious, if you're not able to communicate. Who is going to be that person that's going to decide what your treatment is, what your medications are? You may also have a living will. That's called an advanced directive for a natural death. You can state your desire for how you want to be treated if you're in an end-of-life situation or artificial life support. Okay, so those are important documents as well. They're not necessarily long documents. They should be with your other estate planning documents. One thing I can tell you about the health documents is that you can file them with the North Carolina Secretary of State's office. You file them, they'll make a copy, keep it electronically, and if you ever go into a hospital and need them, they will fax that over to the hospital. So they will do that with the North Carolina statutory forms. The living will, let me just say one more thing about that. That's the advanced directive. That sometimes is the toughest document to really think through and to express what you want to have happen. The doctors don't expect you're ever going to recover, but you're still able to be kept alive. You want to make sure, like the will, that if that living will doesn't represent what you think now, you need to make sure that gets destroyed. Because if someone picks it up again, they're going to say, this is what you want. So I guess part of with the estate planning documents, it's not so much that you're going to have to declutter, but you want to be able to find them, you know, when you need them. So having them in a good place. Let me just mention a few other kinds of records. Let's start with tax records, okay? That is an area where you can file them, right? Years and years of all the bank statements, all the check, you know, boxes of checkbooks and stuff like that. So here's kind of the rule of thumb. I can't give you specifics for every scenario, but the rule of thumb for your personal tax records is that the IRS has 3 years to audit your taxes. From the date that you file them, in general, they have 3 years to audit. That's how long you need to keep your tax records. Okay? In general, for your personal tax records.
We're all thinking it's 7. Did that change?
If you have underreported income at any of those years, if you have written off some stock that you say that's worthless, you have to keep those up to 6 years. Now, if you want to be completely, you know, covering those bases, that really happens to very few people, but you could go 6, 7 years. Now, I would, if you have a CPA or someone you work with, check with them on your individual situation, because there may be something in line. And I would also say, you want to keep the actual tax return. You know, sometimes it's just 3 or 4 pages, your 1040, sometimes it's got some extra stuff on it. Keep just the actual returns. Many people keep those indefinitely. Property deeds, those kinds of things when you buy your house. It's usually not so much stuff. You pretty much want to keep those indefinitely, as long as you own that property. Now, those things do get registered with the Register of Deeds. They're going to have a copy of it as well. A couple other things that I would recommend you keep indefinitely. Insurance policies that are still valid. Okay? Again, in a place where you can find them. And retirement and pension records. You know, not every month's payment, but you know when the payments have been set, what are some of the key documents there. I mention this because as our loved ones age as well, if they are ever looking at long-term care, they may need to be able to access those documents in order to get government support. And of course, just having your insurance as well. So I just kind of bounced off the surface a little bit. Be happy to answer some questions during the question and answer period, and I'll be hanging around afterwards too if you have questions, especially about any of your legal documents. So thank you very much.
Next we have Leland Little, who's the president of Leland Little Auctions. And Leland is going to be here to tell us tonight about how to think about the value of your stuff. That piece of artwork that you're not sure, is that something I could sell, or is that something I should give to the thrift shop? So he'll give us a whirlwind tour about things that we need to think about in that way.
Thank you very much. And so we love collectors, right? We love people that have good stuff. We love them right there. But this portion of the next 10 minutes, we're going to talk about stuff that might have value, meaning money. And who here doesn't want money? Doesn't want an extra $1,000, $2,000? We all do. So money or objects that are worth money to somebody else. So that's what we're going to talk about. What does that market look like? Because the market of things worth money is different today than it was 10 years ago, 30 years ago, 50 years ago. The markets are changing right here. So finally, decorative arts, that's just paintings and pottery and furniture. Is the marketplace in an era of transition? It's more in an era of transition now than it's ever been. the last 10 years, as opposed to, say, if you look from 1920 to 1990, it wasn't really transitioning that much. People inherited stuff, they kept it, they valued antiques, things are changing. So we are professional auctioneers, and what that means is we have an auction gallery in Orange County. Anybody drive by to the sports flex, you actually go right by our auction gallery. And in that gallery, we have a team of individuals there who are experts in wine, or art, or silver, or jewelry, or other definitions. A huge photography department, because while we have a brick and mortar building where we sell things for estates, clients, and so forth, we pull these things from traditional homes, just like your home, your apartment, or complex. This is the gallery, the lower right-hand corner, where we're still conducting auctions in a very traditional sense, where I'm crying the bid out, right? 12, 14, 16, that type of thing. But we combine that now to the next slide. Market now. Everything is digital. So this is how we sell things for people on your iPhone. Anybody have a phone with them tonight? Sure you do. So we're conducting an auction now. You saw the previous slide, if you can pop back one slide. We used to have 400 or 500 people show up to an auction. Now, go to the fourth slide, we'll have 50 to 100 people come to the auction just because they like to, but we'll have thousands on their phone. And so we've taken software, just like lots of businesses, right? It's not unique. And we've made our website scalable, which just means if you're sitting at the soccer game, or right here tonight, you can go to an auction catalog that we have, and you can bid at 1 o'clock in the morning, you can bid at the soccer game, you can bid while you're at a Beaver Street grocery store. And that's what people want to do, is have the ability to bid and collect and buy. Specifically, they don't want to sit through long auctions like we used to. Anybody used to go to the country auctions out under the tent, and the church came, and the hot dogs, the coffee, right? And I loved them. That's why I got in the business. I was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. I was 18 years old, went to a country auction, I was working, making $3 an hour, and said, this is what I'm going to do the rest of my life. I'm going to be an auctioneer. Well, those days are gone. These days are here. And so when we look at product that people have, we want to look at product that you may or may not know to be valuable, right? Because you probably have some things in your collection that you think are valuable, right? Well, my mother told me, or my aunt told me, or my neighbor told me it was valuable, right? Everybody has a best friends, cousins, nephew, neighbor, aunt, uncle who was an antique expert, right? We get that, right? Everybody practices law, don't they? Right? I get it, right? But when we look at things, we want to go, what items really are valuable in today's market? So let's just pop to the next slide. So the strength of the market, and there is strength. Have we all heard that antiques aren't worth what they used to be worth? Well, that's true. Okay, that's not a new statement. That's been declining for years. But fine art. People love fine art, paintings, especially by good listed artists. Jewelry. Why do people like jewelry? Because it's not regional. We have lots of great potters in North Carolina, don't we? Mark Hewitt, Ben Owen III. It's regional. People in Montana don't really care much about it. People in London don't care about it. But do people like jewelry in Dubai and London and Montana and North Carolina? It doesn't matter what language you speak. You all speak the language of jewelry. We all speak the language of wine. Everybody knows what Opus 1 is. Everybody knows what Polyak is, right? Everybody knows what a good Burgundy is. So this is why these markets sustain, because they're supported by a larger worldwide market. Coins, silver, it has market value, right? But it also has a commodity value. What's gold's trading today at $12.70 an ounce? It trades. It's a commodity. Silver's at 16 and change. 3 years ago, it was at 30 and change. It goes up and down. Let's go to the next slide. Changes in the market. I put this slide right here. I fell in love and became an auctioneer because I love the energy of a live auction. But I love the antiques. I love the handmade 18th century furniture. I was just like, wow, somebody did this? This flat top Queen Anne Tiger Maple Highboy used to be worth probably, what, $60,000 to $70,000 in the market, even back in the 1980s. Today, it's probably worth $5,000 to $10,000. Now, it didn't change. We change. People change. Okay? So a lot of times I go into homes and people say, well, I have an appraisal from 1992 that says it was this and it was worth that. What does this mean? It doesn't mean anything. My Apple stock is worth less today than it was a few years ago as well. Because that changed. Here we go. Asian art. Now, in the 1980s, when American furniture was, and English furniture was skyrocketing, right, huge prices, Asian art in the 60s, 70s, and 80s was fairly soft. Why? There's no money. Why is Asian art now? We sold that jade little carved figure, it's 18th century, for $56,000 as an example. It's this big. A few years ago. Well, I'll tell you why. What happened in the 1980s and 1990s and the last 10 years? China became wealthy. You got lots of money. So they're not looking to buy a Mare, rose medallion, and all the export porcelain, right? Remember that, the export porcelain we bought in the 70s and 80s to put on top of our English chest of drawers? They don't want that. They want the things that were taken from their nationalism, right? They're pure Asian things that we bought in the 1920s and 1900 and 1800 that were made for their palaces, their families, their dynasties. That's when you hear Chinese buying the antiques back, they're buying their national level material, not their export level material. When people say, why did markets change? It's always about money, right? In the 1970s and 60s, did China have a lot of money? They did not. They couldn't buy the things. And the markets were closed, right? Communism. Now the markets are open and they pay a great deal of money. We sold a Russian painting a year and a half ago for $180,000. You know why the guy bought it? They paid that much for it? It was a record price for the artist. Because he could. Because he's worth $1 billion. Let's go to the next slide. Fine jewelry, we've already kind of talked about. Again, fine wine, we kind of talked about that. Wine is a strong commodity. Many of the wine bottles that we sell to people, they never drink. They just put it in their cellar like they're collecting coins or collecting art or collecting toys or whatever their interest is. Couture. This is something that we never used to handle, and we handle a lot right now. Let me give you an example. You take that Chanel bag right there. Everybody in this room knew it was Chanel. Why? Because the monogram is right there on it. And how much has Chanel spent marketing that monogram? I'd say a couple $1 billion over the last, 50 years? Right? So when we go to market with that, a lot of people recognize, hey, that's a $3,500, $3,800 bag retail going up to the retail store. We sell it for $2,000. It's a high rate of return. Right? You go buy a car, we know the return drops when you go to sell it. Couture, people want high value things that you can wear on your sleeve, right? And everybody knows. That's why a lot of the millennials, people who are 20 to 50, who don't know anything about antiques, they're looking at something and they can't begin to explain it to you what it is. It's of no value. Oh, but I know that's a Chanel bag. I'll give you $3,000 for it. Okay? I can see it on my computer. Furniture. Again, it's one of my passions. I love it, and we've sold some great pieces of furniture over the years, and a lot of it's local. And I will say, though, the vast majority of it has 10 to 30% of its value it used to have 10 to 20 years ago. Except for the elite. The best of the best always is the best of the best, right? When I was young, when I was in sports, my dad used to say, if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best, right? Encourage a young man to run hard, to play sports hard. The best furniture and the best art and the best whatever always does well. This little paint-decorated blanket chest on the left-hand side, and you say, well, these things aren't around. They're in every home. I've been in thousands of homes. Most of them locally, within a 100-mile radius. That blanket chest was sitting at the foot of the bed in Wake County. I said, where'd you get the blanket chest? We don't know, it's just been sitting here for years and years and generation after generation. Come to find out, it was given in the family to a daughter of the 1840s as her dower chest, right? What you did with your young girls. And never got stripped, meaning it kept its paint. We sold it to Williamsburg for $70,000. It's in their permanent collection. Mid-century. Now, mid-century modern is the hot new market for millennials and people who are 20 to 50 are buying things to put into their home. They don't want the antiques, they want this. I'm talking to some of my old antique collector friends and they're like, Leland, why'd you just sell that sofa for $2,000 when I got out of college we threw it out the curb to go to the trash? Right? I get that, right? But now people want Thayer Coggin and Bogman and all the big names, right? That's the hot words and the buzzwords, and people do searches for it, right? I have that Paul McCobb sideboard, and I get it. That's what people want to decorate with, right? And so things that used to be worth in the 1970s or early 80s, that sofa was worth $20. Now it's $2,000. There are new divisions of things being sold that didn't used to be sold, right? Because nobody cared about it. In 1930s or 40s, nobody collected photography, right? Now we sell photography. It's Alfred Stieglitz. Who was he married to? That's right. And he was the father of photography. So this photography collection, we sold that one photograph for $400,000. Now, 30, 40 years ago, it didn't exist. There was no market for it. Markets changed. Let's go on. Coins, where we talked about commodities. Let's go to the next one. Fine art. It used to be, I like 19th century art. You know, realism, Hudson River, good-looking paintings, still lifes. This is an Anna Skavitz on the left-hand side. It took me a years to develop an understanding and appreciation for modern art. In a way, I almost like Anna Skavitz now more than I do the still life. And there's lots of great art. Do you know the most expensive art in the world? It's not masters, it's not impressionism, it's not realism. It's post-war contemporary art. That's art that was made in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s. You all kind of remember that time? That's the art that brings money right now. Okay, not the art from the 17th century. Silver. Now, yes, a lot of silver is worth its commodity weight, $16 a troy ounce or what have you. But silver is also art form. You take a punch bowl that's Baltic from the 18th century or 19th century, we got $48,000 for it because it's art. It depends on the silver maker, the hallmark, the size, the gilding, the ornamentation. State vehicles. Lots of people have nice cars. We sold this beautiful vehicle right here for Dr. Everett James, who's a great local friend, and he bought that car in 1968, and we sold it for him. And I'm very proud to do so. We sell a lot of late model cars because people want luxury cars. The market today, in summary right here, you see a kind of a hodgepodge of things. Because when you think of auction, and you think of what would your things go to auction, you need to eliminate the concept that, well, all I have is this antique chest of drawers and I don't really have much else. It's actually the last thing that we're looking for when I go in a home. People say to me, I've got this Duncan 5 sofa. I'm like, yeah, what else have we got? And I'm listening to the Duncan 5 sofa, but I'm looking for the money. So what you need to do when you're looking for downsizing and organizing, outside of the papers, outside of just the things, the clothing and other things that kind of take up, it's do you have good fine art? Even post-1950 things that you normally would think, well, I was raised up with that, it's not worth anything. That's actually probably the things that are worth more money now. The pottery, the porcelain, the glass, the jewelry, the coins, the works on paper. It doesn't have to be a 19th century oil on canvas. These are the things that we see that resonates loudly in the auction collecting buying market today.
Everybody know what they want to sell now? Thank you, Leland. We're going to finish our panel with Tracy Lynn. Tracy is with Professional Relocation Options. Who knew? There's a company dedicated to helping seniors downsize. And Tracy is a consultant with them, and she's going to tell us some of the practical aspects of what happens during the move.
So I'm Tracy Lynn, and I work with Professional Relocation Options. We're an old company here in Chapel Hill that's been serving the Triangle, helping people do stuff with their stuff. And that should make our job a lot easier now, knowing that your items are worth a lot less money than you thought. So you can't use that as an excuse anymore to hold on to it. Today I'm filling in for my boss, Lee Glenn, who's the founder of this company. She had hip replacement surgery today. And Lee dialed in on a niche where movers were getting frustrated with their clients because they would show up for the move and clients are not ready to go, or things were not properly packed, and also people just need help. And so Lee got into the business of professionally packing, and then over the years everybody got older and we started calling it senior move management, which is actually an accreditation. So moving seniors is a little bit different than moving someone in their 30s. It does require more patience, more time, and a lot more compassion, because we understand the emotional attachments that you have to your stuff, as Jane so professionally described with dispose of phobia. Love that term. So some of the things that we encounter when we go out and consult for these packing gigs, nobody has allotted enough time for this task. Most people are starting it late. They have moving deadlines, and then we got to get in there and hustle. And just so you kind of understand, when you're moving from one residence to another, generally the packers will need about 2 days to pack up your whole house. The mover is 1 day, and then we also are on the tail end of that, where we do all of your unpacking as well and put everything where you want it. And so some of the pitfalls we've seen in when we're hustling to get the job done is that you are just afraid to ask for help for these reasons, where you've hoarded so much, you don't know where to begin, you're embarrassed about it, and you don't want to spend the extra money to hire somebody to give you a hand. But there's plenty of kids out there that'll work with you, and one of the challenges, and I know I'm jumping all over the map here, but I know that one of the challenges is that families, your children, do not live near you, many of them, and so you just don't have the available resources for kids to come in there and help you. So going to have to either ask for help or spend the money and pay somebody to do this for you. As I said, nobody's done time management all that well, sorry to say. And it's the indecision of what to part with that ends up costing you more money. When those movers show up with the truck and the 4 guys, and they have provided your estimate for that job, and you're not ready, and they need to do the packing on that end, that's a type of expense you don't want to encounter. It's twice the cost of what we would charge. Also, unfortunately, with people managing their items, people are tripping over their own things and getting hurt, making them incapable of actually doing some moving. So, and then the last thing is that people don't have a floor plan of where they're going. And so here you've earmarked these things that hopefully you've earmarked, and I'll explain that in a moment. You know what you want to take, but you haven't figured out where it's going to go, and you haven't really looked at doors and windows and placement of the couch and distance to the TV and your favorite piece of art and miscellaneous items. I assume most people are downsizing, and so you're going to be left with the most important things. So you need to have a good floor plan, and you need to at least get some help if you don't know what you're doing. When you're cutting out a little piece of paper that represents your kitchen table, make sure it's not the size of the bathroom. There's a lot of miscalculations there. So first things first, know where you're going, understand the room dimensions, look at the door and window placements. And if you're moving into a retirement community, I struggle with this from an architectural perspective constantly when closets that do not make sense. You can pay to have them redone, but check out closet shelving heights, clothing rod heights, and actual closet space, and make sure that it's going to be suitable for what we or you are taking out and putting into the new space. We have a system try to encourage people to implement, and that is putting stickers on items. So it gives you a visual understanding of what do I want to take with me. Give it a green sticker, those items are going. White stuff you give away. Yellow stickers is to donate to friends, family, grandchildren, homeless families, anybody, PTA, Habitat, etc. Blue stickers to place in storage. I completely object to storage spaces. It's a waste of money, and you're probably not going to be going back in there to look at your stuff again. So really try to get away from that. And then the red stickers are for those items to give away. So you get a visual. As you're going throughout your house, you start tagging these things, and then it creates a little clarity in your mind. Okay, so here's the priceless items you cannot part with will get a green sticker, and that's going to save you money too. Once you know what stuff is going to go, then you get your moving quote, and at that point you should have decided what kind of furniture you want and approximately how much stuff you have to pack, and then you're going to get a more accurate quote for the move. So that's how that can be useful. And then the red stickered items, you just want to get those things out of your way and not think about them again. So I like to create a whole room and just start throwing everything in that room and then close the door and never look in there again unless it's to open it and chuck something else, your third coffee pot, these slippers you got 20 years ago, etc. So just make sure you give yourself enough time. It takes a long, long time just to mentally get your act together and to embrace the thought of moving at all. It's very difficult, we understand that. Start small and stay focused. You want to start in one drawer. Tackle one little tiny drawer at a time. I mean, one drawer can have 4 hours worth of work in it. So, notes on packing. If you're not using a professional packing service, you want to make sure that you use the right materials. So we can't go packing things with newspapers in liquor boxes and expect, that to make it to the new destination. Movers want stuff in good, heavy boxes with good tape that is well marked so that they know it's going from point A to B. Any deliberation about this is just going to cost you money. Clearly label your contents. It will help you when the movers are putting the stuff. You want to know that it's come out of the living room and it's going into the living room. It came from the master bathroom and it's going to go into the master bathroom. This will help you save time on the unpacking part. I hate throwing stuff out. It makes me feel guilty. I'm constantly promoting upcycling, recycling, repurposing, and making good use of this stuff. This is all after determining how big or how small is my new space. We already know the places that we can drop off our stuff. Of course, Habitat will come and pick up anything. PTA, Orange County does have a truck, so they will pick up stuff. Just make sure the stuff that you are giving away is at least half decent and usable for the next person. And you're welcome to talk to me after the session, which is now being concluded and opened up. So thank you for your time.
All right, we're going to open up the floor for questions. So when I begin decluttering, I don't know whether something is worth something or not. And we're not talking about fine art, and we're not talking about fine furniture, and we're not talking about the obvious kind of thing. So how do I go about determining whether that old Viewmaster little projector thing is something that I should get some money for, or how do I best dispose of? This is the biggest problem I have, is knowing how best to dispose of the things I want to dispose of, because I don't want to just put them in a bag and haul them off to the PTA thrift store. I want to dispose of them in the best way possible for me and everybody concerned.
So just to be clear, the question that she's asking is, if it's not a piece of fine art, but still might have some value, but you're unsure whether that has value or not, there are two typical ways to approach that. There are a lot of certified appraisers out there who have certifications in what's called personal property. They're ASA, ISA, other designations, just like we have here tonight, of people who are certified to come in for a fee, just like hiring an accountant or an attorney, and you pay them for a professional report. So they look at these things, they go out to them and look at sale comparables, right? So they'll say that Viewmaster might be worth $110 on the market today. So then you can take that information and discern whether, okay, for that kind of money, I'd like to continue to own it, keep it. For that kind of money, I'd like to donate it. Maybe I can submit that report to my tax accountant for a write-off this year. Or you know what, that's not a lot of money to me. I just as soon give it to Habitat, and if somebody gets it, great for them. but it gives you the information you need. So that's one way. Another way is people will send images to auction companies like ourselves and ask a question. You know, I don't need a formal appraisal, just have a question about this one Viewmaster. Is it, you know, substantially worth a lot of money? And we might say, hey, you know, probably not, maybe $100 to $200, and, you know, loosely give a response to that, right? Or, hey, that does look very interesting to the marketplace today. We might need to take a closer look at it. It might be worth, you know, a few $1,000s and give you a better response. So again, asking a question primarily to a licensed appraiser or an auction company, somebody that's dealing in personal property on a daily basis, will get an answer that you may or may not like, but it gives you an answer so you can make an informed decision.
A Saturday from 10 to 12, you'll have the opportunity to get in front of people, Leland associates, to bring pictures of your stuff that you have questions about, or pieces of jewelry that you would like what we're calling a curbside appraisal on. This is a quick opportunity to just get in front of someone who may be able to help you assess the value of your item. There'll be other people at this event that I want to highlight now, since that question's on the floor, that the ability to get some of your items appraised is forthcoming.
Where?
It's going to be here at the Seymour Center.
What is the cost associated with your coming out and looking at a few items that I think might be of value? Because one of the impediments to decluttering is I have some things I think are valuable, but I'm not sure if anybody wants them.
Fortunately, in today's world, just a couple quick snapshots on your iPhone will solve a lot of time problems. So what we try to do without burdening people with large bills, right? Because you start having to, you know, transfer to people's houses and so forth. It's costly. The most expensive commodity is time. But so the first thing we respond to people is send a quick text message or email message with the item that you're considering. Because in 20 seconds we can typically respond that this is going to be worth a house call, you know, or this is not. All right.
And your email is.
Well, this is not a sales class right now, so but they have all our information if you need it, okay?
Is eBay a good indication of the market value of commodity things that we're all trying to get rid of?
eBay is good if you know how to read it, right? Just like we're talking about a will. Wills are great if you know how to read them or have somebody do it for you. When people look at eBay right now, it's not what it was 10 or 20 years ago. eBay is a buy it now store. So people take their item, they put it up there with the price. The price is not necessarily relevant to anything. You know, we can ask $10,000 for that podium right now. And that's what we see on the marketplace. We'll just ask you whatever they want for things. So unless you have a discerning, educated eye to discern that that is a Louis XV rare podium that, you know, Beethoven played at, right, then you can make a judgment of what evaluation is. That's why, going back to your question, you pay an appraiser or a licensed auctioneer who deals in that to discern the subtleties of why something like eBay may or may not be worth it. But to answer your question directly, if you know how to use eBay, you look at where something's sold, and that begins to begin comparable if you could judge two things equally.
But if you have a trust that was restated, that it maintains the same date and the name of the original trust, do you need to keep that original trust document?
A restatement of a trust, for example, it might be a living trust. It says restatement, but very often it is a completely different trust. You just keep the name of the trust because you already have some items that are, that the title has been transferred to that name. So yes, it's not as critical as a will, because trusts are much more flexible. You know, with a will, you don't want the old will ever showing up. But with an older trust, I think it's okay. You just want to be sure. Pardon? No, you do not need to keep it. Not at all. Once that trust is restated, the new trust is going to be the one that will govern the trustee and how that's managed. In some circumstances, if there was a deliberate choice to get rid of the to restate that trust. It wasn't just an update on something. You may well want to destroy the old trust.
This is for the gentleman from Leland Little. If you are moving and you have a lot of things that you might be interested in having for auction, if Leland Little is interested in them, do they make house calls? And if so, what's involved?
So yes, house calls are made. And so typically, again, starting with a few photos to make sure that we get a sense that there might be some value there. We are delighted to follow up with an in-person house call to see things face-to-face, also meet the client, understand expectations, objectives, make sure they can be met, right? And if then that's the case, then and the product is there and things seem to be satisfactory, then you can move forward with an auction process.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Colin, what is your opinion on just digitizing everything instead of keeping paper records?
So I favor keeping electronic copies of documents. I think it's great to share those copies with the people that are involved in your estate planning, or maybe your children or your sibling, so that, again, that one of the biggest issues with estate planning and clutter is not being able to find where your estate planning is. That said, and I always keep electronic copies in my office. That said, you're going to have some items, like a will, that you have to have the physical copy. You have to have the original. In order to file your will, you need the original copy of your will. You can go with a copy of your power of attorney to many banks as long as it's registered. A trust may work as well. But so I still have kind of a few toes in the paper world as well. I don't recommend keeping, all the surrounding legal documents that you might have gone through, but for your key documents, I do always recommend that 3-ring binder, that one set that you're going to keep. And make electronic copies of those and share those with people.
I believe when I did my will in New Jersey about 10, 15 years ago, that the estate attorney kept a copy of my will and kept it in their offices. When I came here, I had someone look at it to see if it would still be valid, and it was checked out with a quick look that it was just as good in North Carolina as it was there. But I don't think the attorney here has to keep a copy of it. Would that be a good idea? And is that sort of done in North Carolina typically?
Some attorneys, especially in large firms, will keep a copy of the estate planning documents upon the request of the client. And some may just keep it anyway because it's a way of sort of maintaining that connection. It's a little old school now. It's more common to let that, and it's my preference to let the estate planning documents go with the client. Because the problem is, again, if something happens to you, who is going to know where that will is? Who it's in another state, it's with another firm. What's happened with that firm? Has that attorney left that firm? Do they still have the record? I have a number of clients where the attorneys have retired, they've got a 20-year-old will, and that attorney is no longer. My recommendation would be anytime you move to a new state, make sure you have your documents, copies, so that people know where they are. It's good you had that checked out. Most of the time, out-of-state documents will be valid in North Carolina, but there are some circumstances where they're not, so it's always good to have it checked out.
Colin, where did you say you could file your health document?
It is the North Carolina Department of State. And you look up their website, and you can look up healthcare directives, healthcare power of attorney, filing with the Secretary of State. And it's a free service, and you can send them copies or fax.
Secretary of State's office.
Yes.
So my question, I know Mr. Little, I believe what you do, you have like large amounts of things that you sell in a lot. So if someone doesn't have things that are worth a lot of money, but I have a 94-year-old mother who thinks everything she has is worth a lot of money and that we might be able to sell it for something. And I guess I'm looking for sources of things that would not be thousands of dollars, but that might, how do we go about finding out like collectible Avon things or other kinds of things like that that are not in the category of things that you sell?
Two questions I think I'm hearing is one, how do you find out the values of collectibles? Is that one question you're asking? And then how, once you find that value, how can you sell those things?
Yeah, just because something is, you think something is worth something, you gotta find a buyer. It's not.
So I think our question is two-part, and that is that, there's obviously a lot of material out there in the collectible world that has some value, maybe not a great deal, but let's just call it in the $10 to $300 range. And you still want it sold, you want somebody to buy it, but a large auction company cannot afford to sell things of that nature. There are lots of good estate tag sale companies around. I won't name a few out public because it's not a sales class, but there are avenues that people come in as a service and conduct estate tag sales. And they can perform a very good service where they're selling things for $10 and $130 and $70 and $230 and things of this value. And typically if you hire a good estate tag sale individual, they're competent to either know the values of these things or know how to research the value of these things and perform a good service where you're getting some monies for these collectibles. And so that's probably the easiest way to do it outside of, as this individuals are maybe taking the photograph and selling it yourself on Craigslist or eBay or some other internet portal, which is completely doable if you've got the time, energy, and common sense to do such a thing. Most people don't, and in the case of your mother who's elderly and you have a large grouping of things, you don't want to spend the next 3 years selling one thing at a time on Craigslist. You just want somebody to sell it and try to get 5, 10, 20 grand for it and move on to the next process. So I would recommend typically going to somebody who can perform an estate tag sale at that home. You're not moving the stuff's being sold there, and someone's paying you to take it out of the home. And you're paying somebody a commission to perform that professional service for you. And that's nothing wrong with it.
This is a question for Jane, and it's about photographs, family photographs. And I've been sorting through them, and I'm trying to separate them out for me and with each of my grown sons. And then I'm also sending some that I find off to relatives. And it's just taking me too much time. And I know that kind of belongs in the sentimental category. So what would you suggest?
In the 70s and 80s, people were making a lot of duplicates. So you're probably going through at times a lot of duplicates of it. Also, you have to look at the quality of the picture. Some people keep them and they're fuzzy. That's not good. So sometimes you'll have to think about the volume your own self. You're going to have to determine that. But a lot of times when you go through them, it's how fast you go through it. And really, you can tell yourself that mantra. What do you really want to keep? You want to keep a good, clear picture, right? And maybe if there's a theme of different decades of a person's life, then keep that theme for the 30s, 40s, whatever that is. And then you don't have to have the whole volume in every picture, because I can tell you one thing, your family won't go through them. How many of you on your iPhones right now have so many pictures, and some that are really, should have been deleted right at the time. It's just as bad on your iPhone as the ones you're talking about. So it's something you're going to have to, discern and do something right away with.
Continuation of the organizing extravaganza. We will have food trucks, 10 to 12, so you'll be able to get something to eat. We will have shredder trucks, so you can bring your documents and actually have them shredded right here at the Seymour Center. We'll have people who are in the business of getting rid of your stuff, staging a home for sale. We'll have realtors who will be here to help you if you want to downsize your home. And we will have Leland Little and his crowd back again to help you with a curbside appraisal. So it's going to be an event to help you go from tonight, where you're going to be thinking about all these things and getting excited about decluttering, to actually put some things into action. So that's again November 18th here from 10 to 12.
We are so fortunate to have the experience of these people here, because you don't always have everybody in the same room with all the expertise. And take advantage of November 18th, and remember, do those goals each week, because that will help you stay on task.
I just want to say that one time I actually hired a professional organizer to help me get started on some decluttering, and it was absolutely worth every single penny. And I think I only hired them for an hour or two, but it was absolutely, totally worthwhile, because they gave me some things to think about, like you did, and some ways of approaching it, that it was totally valuable. So I would highly recommend, if you can, and you're stuck and you need help, to do that.
Yeah, my colleague who owned the business, Miss Michelle back there, and she gave a talk one time, and a year later, a woman called, but it took her a year to go through and finally have the courage to actually call us. But you know, that's the time you need to therapeutically think about this.
There's a myth going round town that when you get older you just sit down and start rocking, just rocking. In a way that's true, if you know what I mean. Just take a look at the senior scene. Well, it's rocking. Yeah, it's rocking. We're pulling our weight, learning the code.